Hey, it's Heather, and in this episode of Not Just Heathers, we are joined by Zachary Jackson, or Zach, as I like to call him, from Geeks Rising, and I hope that you enjoy hearing his stories from his journey. Hey, Zach, thank you for joining me. It's great to have you here, but also thank you for your support prior to this launching, because when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, this has actually come to fruition a lot quicker because of your support. And when you've got support, it's amazing the motivation that comes from that. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's always fun to support people in their endeavors.
I think that our connections kind of come about from Geeks Rising, and the last couple of years, really, we've been in contact fairly frequently, like from when I joined Geeks Rising. And you're part of On the Subject, which is a podcast about film. And I've been able to join you a few times, and you guys have joined me for the Sunshine Summit, which is really exciting. But how did you come to be a part of On the Subject?
Well, so this goes back to, I can't remember, it was like 5 or 6 years ago. I lost track of time at this point. But our other co-host on the subject, Malcolm, we just talked about making our own podcast a while ago, where we just wanted to talk about like pop culture type things, like comics, movies, and TV shows. Then we did that for a little while. It was called Culture Popped. And then we took a break for a little bit, and then we decided to start up again. And as we were deciding to start up again, Logan contacted us and asked if we wanted to like combine for like a new season of his previous podcast, Paper Robots.
Mm-hmm.
We did that for a little bit, and then we eventually just turned that into On the Subject to make it a more focused effort. And so we've been doing that for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I love that, because I used to listen to the Paper Robots before, and I love that it came together to become On the Subject. You guys are amazing in what you share. You pick a film to cover, and you do series sometimes, like the TV series to film that I got to join you for Serenity for, which was awesome.
Yeah, it's always fun to have you on there.
Thank you. Logan is funny like that too, in a way, because he was one who messaged me about, hey, I've got an idea of a thing that you should do. And that's how this podcast came to be, was kind of a culmination of his idea with something I'd already been planning in the works. So that's really neat to have a similar story.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before Malcolm and I started Culture Pop, Logan had us on Paper Robots to like endorse it before it started, which was cool.
Oh, nice. He is super supportive like that. He does a lot of things. I remember watching a live stream he did with Jason Pittman when he was launching his comic, even, The Wolf of Caleb. But that's a story for another day. Yeah. In terms of like connections and things, you've got another connection with Logan in that he made a podcast called Stuck Listening, and you were able to be a part of, help make one of those episodes.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was, I'm trying to remember the exact name of the episode, but it was like a detective drama, but like a parody of that.
And so you wrote that episode?
Yes, I wrote it. Then I sent it over to Logan and Cody, where they did all like the production stuff for it. They read for the characters, and then they made like music for it and stuff. It was really cool.
That's a great project, and it's fun when we can be involved in other creative projects with each other. I've loved that too, like how we've done our Geeks Rising live streams.
Yeah, and I've been in talks with Logan and Cody to make, or to write new episodes for their season 2. I just gotta get to it. I've got some ideas. I just gotta figure out how to turn them into funny ideas.
I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah. The episode I wrote for season 1 is called Solemn Justice, Hard Crimes and Hard Times.
Nice.
And I listened to a bunch of radio plays and stuff, which I had done before, and then I just went back and to try and figure out like the format of it, because it's very different from like a screenplay.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't sure how long to make it, because I didn't know like what each page would translate like into time. Because a screenplay, the rule of thumb, it's like 1 page for 1 minute, which is usually wrong. but I can't remember how many pages this one was, but it came out to about like 10 minutes or something, I think, or 15 minutes with like the included intro and outro.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorite things I worked on last year.
Nice.
I'm glad they liked it.
Yeah, and I enjoyed listening.
It's good. I like your episode that you were on.
Man, that was the most interesting experience. I've not really recorded without the other person before. That's not quite true. I did a voiceover for a Christmas special for the Gonna Geek Network, but I've not really had that thing where you have to just record the dialogue without anyone else to bounce off of. And they did a really good job putting it in and playing off of what I said.
Yeah. It was great.
Thanks.
It's got to be just awkward, I feel like.
Yeah. I didn't know how. I should have asked more questions. I think that's the thing I learned from that, was to ask more questions and get more direction. And I think maybe the other thing to do if someone was in that situation would be to record different takes of the same line. It's probably what people do, but I haven't gone into voice acting.
Yeah. I feel like voice acting is even harder than regular acting, because like I'll watch things where like regular celebrities will be doing voices and they just aren't good at it because they're not used to it, I guess. Mm-hmm. It's weird. So I feel like it's gotta be super difficult just in general.
Yeah. I think if you have the scene setting and props and all other physical things to help you, is totally different experience to recording in like a recording booth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first time I found out that most of the actors on a animated movie don't meet each other.
Yeah.
Like blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know each other till like the release of the film.
When they're all doing the interviews and premiere stuff,
yeah,
getting together for photos. Oh, hey.
Yeah. Like I found that out when Shrek came out. Oh. It's stuck with me ever since.
It's funny. I didn't realize, on the note of that though, people who do like voiceover stuff, I didn't know how much Alan Tudyk did as an actor and voice actor, because he's been in so much stuff beyond what I knew him in.
Oh, I know. It's crazy.
Discovered while talking to you.
Yeah. I want to ask like an actor like if it's easier or more difficult.
I think you put it well though. He's a prolific actor.
Yeah, he's got a good voice too.
Yeah. What blew my mind was that he did multiple parts in Moana, like in that film, that I didn't realize.
I didn't know that until you told me. Like I just knew he did the chicken.
Yeah. So he was the chicken and the old guy who wanted to eat the chicken and the guy getting a tattoo.
Oh, yeah.
The more you know. You, though, yourself have a love of film and a huge depth of knowledge, and I think if anyone tried to take you on in a trivia challenge, God help them. No, but it would be a lot of fun. You know lots of stuff and you're really passionate about it. So what are films for you?
Films for me are, I guess they're multiple things. I guess they're an escapist thing, which I think they are for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. But they're also just like a great way to express yourself. Like part of why I like it, and like I always want to make films, or like I've always dreamed to make films, is because ever since I was a kid, like I've had like a stutter, and it's hard for me to talk to some people until I get very comfortable with them, and I just get very shy. But then like films are a way for me to show what I like and what I want to tell people without actually talking. If that makes sense.
That's awesome. That's a very creative form of expression. And there's a lot that goes into all of that, like the writing of the script and video production and everything. So you share that passion through the On the Subject podcast, really. You can hear it in your knowledge that comes out in the things that you share as you guys talk. It blows my mind. Like I can't review films the way that you do. I just sit and watch them, really. And I'm like, that was nice. But when you're making podcasts and wanting to work on film production or video production or anything, what inspires you?
I guess like two things really inspire me. One is just like my day-to-day life and like interactions with people, and just like I'll just get little ideas from hearing people talk about things that happen within their life, or just even just like it doesn't even have to be like within their life, just things that they talk about in general. And then listening to music really inspires me. Mm-hmm. Like I'll just listen to whatever, and I'll start getting just like visuals in my head, and then like I want to film those and turn those into things that I can show other people. Awesome.
Do you record those anywhere? Like, do you have a notebook or anything that you've jot them down in to remember what you've been inspired by?
Yes, on my phone I've got like just pages and pages of memos.
Nice.
And then on my computer, I've also got just like notes all over the place. It's like the messiest thing, but and I've got like a moleskin notepad somewhere where I've got a bunch of ideas in there. And ever since I was a kid, like in high school, I would just write in notebooks, like just ideas for like cartoons was what I was really into back then. Like I really like anime concept.
Cool.
So, and I have like multiple notebooks just full, like back to front, of just characters, plots, episode ideas, like storylines. It's I've been doing that for like a long time.
That is awesome, and that you've kept them.
Yeah, I was happy to find them again in my most recent move because I thought I lost them, but they were just in a box, just tucked away.
Well, that's awesome. Like the bonus of moving. Moving is tricky and a lot of work, but you come across some gems sometimes, and you found the journals that you had. That's so cool.
Yeah, definite highlight of moving.
On that note, then, you say you've got lots of notes from things that inspire you, which is really cool. And have you used them to draw on anything that you've created so far, or are they still just projects that are there waiting to be tackled or approached?
It's a mix of both, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't made anything like too big since the end of 2019 when I made like a short film, and then obviously 2020 was this whole problem, for just being cloistered away and all that. But I used an idea for that I got like a long time ago, which is one of the ideas in my phone notes, and like I've done just like even if I can't do like a video, sometimes I'll just try and do like outlines or like storyboards of ideas that I have written down. And most recently, I've started to write a screenplay for this Western idea that I've had for more than 10 years now.
Whoa. Do you know what? I have loved seeing your updates on how much you've written. It's just so exciting to see your progress. Like, not physically see your progress, but the word count, whatever you're up to.
Yeah.
It's very awesome, and I'm definitely here cheering you on for that process.
I definitely appreciate that. I've hit like a little roadblock, but that was because I had computer problems, but now I'm able to get back to it, so I hope I can do that again starting this week if I get some like motivation.
Yeah, that's really tricky when the tech kind of holds you up on something, and I know that building a whole new computer is a big thing, and sometimes that doesn't go to plan, but it's good when we can get them finally sorted. Do you have like a routine for when you're writing that screenplay? Like, do you set aside specific time, or do you just do it when you have like a creative spark?
I try and like I'll start when I have a creative spark, but then I set a timer for myself to make sure I write for at least that long.
Nice.
And I won't stop until it goes up, but most of the time I go past the timer. I usually set for about 60 to 90 minutes.
Cool. I've wanted to write a book, and I've said that for many years, and I slowly add to it kind of over time, but I don't make a habit of sitting down and just writing at the same time or for a set amount of time. And I think that might be quite handy if, like you say, to set a timer and keep yourself to it and be in the flow and maximize that while you've got it.
Yeah. And then every once in a while, like if I'm not feeling that creative, I'll still try and sit down to start writing or something, but I'll put on someone like my favorite music or something to get flowing, and then I'll at least write something, even though it's not like something I plan on using. It's good to just get started.
Yeah, absolutely. A while ago for Conversations with Creators, which is another podcast where you, Logan, got to talk to creators and hear from them, you interviewed Felicia Day, and she published a book, Embrace Your Weird, and I loved that book because it had creative prompts in it that helped really get me out of a funk. And if, for example, you're stuck and a bit of a roadblock, just making time to write something, like you said, even if you're not going to use it, just helps keep that flow going. And if you can't do that on your own, then maybe look for something with prompts.
Yeah. Yeah. Prompts are always like a fun way to like start the process.
Yeah. So in all of this, how do you prepare for on the subject specifically?
So before each series, Logan, Malcolm, and we discuss what it'll be about and what the general theory is, I guess, of each subject.
Mm-hmm.
So we have like something to build off of from the beginning. Like our current series right now is movies based off TV shows, and our main thing that we want to talk about is if it helps the series in the long run, like if the addition of the movie helps,
Mm-hmm.
or like if it builds off of it in a constructive way, or if it's just like a boring money grab or something like that. And so what I usually do is I'll watch the movie at least once, and I'll take notes while I'm watching. And if I really enjoy it, I'll watch it again just for fun, and I can absorb it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And for the most part, I feel like I've seen most of these movies before that we've done, except for like our previous series on Joseph Gordon-Levitt. There's a bunch of his I'd never seen. It's interesting, but it's hard to pay attention to the movie while writing notes,
Mm-hmm.
which is why I try and give it a second viewing if I can. And then after that, like I'll just do some research on the production process and background stuff. I'll look up trivia, or I'll look up interviews with like actors or directors or writers and see what they say about the movie, and try and pick some info out of there that'll make it more interesting to talk about on the show.
So I have a question. Do you do that normally with movies you watch that aren't for On the Subject? Or is that just the process that you do for On the Subject? Because like sometimes if I really like something, I will look into the history of like the background of it a little bit more. But usually like I said earlier, I just sit there and watch it and enjoy it or not without going behind the scenes. So are you passionate in the sense that you will always do a little bit of research behind something you've watched?
Almost always. Like if the movie's interesting in some way, and I'm curious just about like either how they did like a camera trick or something like that, or if I just want to see like where they came up with the idea for the plot, I'll look up interviews and stuff. Or if I just want more, like if the movie just wasn't enough for me, like I just want to absorb more, I'll look up like behind the scenes and interview stuff just to like elongate that experience.
Because once it's over, you kind of feel that sense of loss that it's finished. But if there's other stuff to enjoy,
yeah,
it helps.
Like recently, I've been rewatching like Blu-ray features from the Lord of the Rings movies, and those are just a ton of fun, and it makes me nostalgic.
Awesome. So then you guys make a time to record On the Subject, right?
Yes, we usually try and record on Thursday evenings if our schedules allow it. If not, we can usually do the following day, or one of us will sit out and the other two will just do the episodes.
Yeah.
Which doesn't happen a lot, but it happens once in a while.
Yeah, but sometimes I like how you bring the other person into the episode if they're not there. Like, you have fun with it too, and that's really neat.
Yeah.
And it must be a challenge. I'm sort of projecting here, but in my mind, it must be a challenge to align the schedules of 3 different people.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, especially because like Logan and Malcolm, they both work a lot and their schedules kind of bounce around sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Or my schedule is, I can essentially make it myself, so I'm not that I'm not that strict, so I try and be flexible with their stuff. But yeah, like they're both super busy, so it can be difficult, especially when we have a guest on.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a whole other thing. And then if they're from like a different time zone, it becomes a task. But we usually pull it off pretty well, I feel like.
I think despite how hard that might be, it is worth it. And I appreciate the effort as one of your guests from a different time zone. But yeah, that's not easy. And I think you do a great job with that. I've seen just from behind the scenes, which is probably, I've got a bit of an insight into that since we're connected through Geeks Rising, and we kind of have a group where we can keep in touch, and we keep in touch in general. But you've taken on some organizational things, and you've done a great job with the social media for Geeks Rising too, which I really appreciate because I was not good at it. But
You were good at it.
Thanks. So you each have parts to play. Sometimes you host, or like, do you take turns at hosting the episodes?
Yeah, we do like a round robin type hosting where it's just a cycle. And then if we get like a specific guest, whoever booked that guest usually hosts the episode, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really like a set rule, but I just feel like that's what's been happening lately.
Nice.
Like Logan, I feel like he hosts most of the regular episodes before we started doing the cyclical one, which I really appreciate because I get super nervous when I host.
Aww.
But I also do like hosting because it gives me like a reason to look more into the background stuff on the movies, even if it's ones I dislike. And I think each of us go at it from like a different perspective, which is nice too.
Absolutely. You have a great banter with each other, as well as the different perspectives you bring on the films that you cover.
Yeah, that's one of the best things. Like, I also like that with the three of us, the dead air isn't that bad. like when it's two of us, sometimes we'll just like we'll say something, we'll both like agree or we'll disagree, and then we'll just sit there for a second while our brains are like processing. But then with the third host, it keeps it keeps the ball rolling. But I think we've all got like a really good rapport with each other.
Absolutely. And I guess that comes from knowing each other really well, because you've had a lot of time that you've had your connection with each other, and that helps play on because you can play off of each other. And sometimes it's really fast and my brain struggles to keep up.
Yeah.
Like when I join you, I'm just like, wait, just listen.
I feel like one problem I have is it's hard to balance like when I want, like I'm trying to give space for the next person to talk, or if I want to interject. Like I'm not sure if I should wait or if I should just start talking or what.
I fully understand that. I fully appreciate that. I have the same thing. One thing that I like about live streams was that I could see the other person. So I like the visual cues that you have when you're talking to someone. But when you just connect over a voice call, it's really hard to know when to jump in, I find.
Yeah. I feel like that's been one of the biggest problems with doing like the recording from home over like 2020 until now.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all used to record either at Logan's house or at And Gallery.
Yeah.
And we could all see each other, so we would know when one's like about to say something or not, like you said. But now it's slightly more awkward sometimes, especially if like internet problems happen. Like there might be just a minute where we don't realize that somebody's just completely disconnected. Which is weird. Like if you think about that in person, like what if one of the people just disappeared for a moment?
So how have you kind of overcome some of these challenges?
Some of the work from home stuff has actually been kind of helpful, especially like with getting guests.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last episode you recorded with us also had Ducky, who's from another country, which I feel like it would normally be very difficult, even. But like since we're used to recording from home, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Because we're all used to the programs that we use now for the most part, and it's hard to say because at first it was a little stressful, especially because my computer was having like a ton of problems. My internet was really bad. It was stressing me out a bunch. Mm-hmm. But then once I got it mostly sorted out, it became a lot smoother than normal.
That's good.
Just like recording from home just makes some of the things a lot easier.
Yeah. There's less travel time.
That's a big thing, yeah.
If you were meeting up in person.
Yeah.
You don't have to get dressed up.
Yeah, exactly.
What have been some of the notable like people in your journey of content creation that have helped you along the way? Whether that be with your journey of video film production or screenplay writing or creating episodes of podcasts?
Like I mean, the cheesy answer is like everybody at Geeks Rising is like a big thing. You and Bandrew are great, and then especially you, because like you'll give feedback. Like we talk a lot, so
Yeah.
you're available to give feedback a lot of the time, and you're very constructive, which is very nice. And also, like if like I just need to blow off steam, you're fun to talk to also. And then Bandrew's super helpful too, like especially with technical stuff that I just can't quite wrap my head around.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only talked to Ducky a few times, but he's a lot of fun. He's very like high energy about the things he likes, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Like it was so fun talking to him about the Doom game and the Doom movie, because that movie wasn't great, but his enthusiasm about the game really helped it out.
Absolutely. That held that episode.
Yeah. And then Ben, he's just like super knowledgeable. And it's just like kind of like in awe when I talk to him sometimes, because he's so well spoken and everything.
Oh, I agree. Absolutely.
He's great. Yeah. And also he's been on our show a couple times for two of like my favorite movies ever, which are Terminator 2 and then The Brady Bunch.
Awesome.
Yeah, his taste is pretty spot on. And then I've, as far as the podcast, like guests and stuff, I really enjoyed talking with Charlie Feldman, who I still chat with once in a while. I ask her like screenwriting advice type stuff.
Cool.
And yeah, it's not like it's like an acquaintance type thing. It's not daily.
Yeah.
But she's like she responds pretty quickly, and she's very nice, which is nice.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then also Keely Bumford, who's the musician Dressage.
Mm-hmm.
I keep in contact with her quite a bit. I helped her out with like some video editing stuff last year, and then I'll ask her some things about audio production, but I try not to hassle her with that because it's not like her job, but she's very knowledgeable about that stuff too, which is nice.
Yeah, that was a neat connection to make, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. She's very cool.
How did that come about?
So after I interviewed Charlie, I asked her if she knew anybody that would be up for an interview, and so she told me to ask Maggie Levin, who was like a director and writer who had a Hulu movie coming out, but she was busy. So I saw that she was friends with like the person that made the music on that, who turned out to be Keely. So I just messaged her on Instagram, and she was on board right away.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just gotta shoot your shot, I guess.
Absolutely. Were you nervous about that?
Always. like, I haven't even re-listened to the episode because it makes me nervous.
Oh. I think, though, that's good that you still reached out despite being nervous, because I think a lot of people think, who am I to be asking this person or anyone or whatever? Like, we make ourselves smaller than we are, but you can only ask, and they can either say no, or you might not hear from them, or they'll say yes, you know?
Yeah.
So.
Like, the worst thing is a no, which isn't, it's like, it's fine. It's not going to change anything from beforehand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just not a nice feeling when you get those.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's very awesome that you made those connections and sort of went laterally to make that connection there. And likewise, you are a great connection for me because you've been a sounding board, but also just supportive in general. And it's really nice to have someone on your side who will call you out when you're saying silly things that kind of put yourself down and help motivate you and, you know, encourage and just check in. And so thank you for being that for me.
Oh, glad I can do that for you.
On the note of things that have helped us, what are some of the resources like books or websites or any courses that you've done that have helped you on your content creation journey?
The big one that pops in my head, I guess, is it's a podcast called Script Notes, which is hosted by John August and Craig Mazin, who are both relatively big screenwriters. And they give great advice, and they're John August is the reason I started doing like the writing sprint things, like the 60-minute things.
Cool.
He calls them writing sprints, and he'll post on Twitter that he's going to write, and like at the top of the hour he's going to start one. So that's what originally got me into it. Then I just started doing it on my own without his prompting.
Awesome. That's neat to know that someone else would be doing it at that time, and you're really like, oh, I'll do it too. And then
Yeah, that's cool because like once you're done, you post like how many words you wrote on there, and then other people will do that. Then like you could talk to each other about like what type of stuff you wrote. It's nice.
Cool. Where is that happens?
It's called Script Notes. You can find that on any podcast app like Apple, Spotify, anything like that. You can also go to johnaugust.com, and he's got like a backlog of all the episodes. You could pay for the ones that are years older and stuff, because I think he keeps like 100 open at a time or something like that.
Ah, okay. And where do people post how many words they've done? Was that just on Twitter or?
Yeah, just on Twitter, on at John August on his page when he does that.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
That's neat that the community get together in the like threads or whatever they call them on Twitter.
Yeah.
And connect with each other.
Yeah. And also there's like the hashtag for it is writing sprint.
Okay. Hashtag writing sprint. Neat. Have you ever done a NaNoWriMo? Even though that's like novel writing?
No, I've thought about, like, every year I look into it, I think about it, but I don't do it for some reason. Which I think is like my biggest problem. Like, I'll think about things a lot, but then I just won't actually do it.
Yeah, I have that problem too. That's awesome that podcast has helped. Is there any other particular websites maybe that you look at when you're doing the research for the episodes?
Usually just, I'll go through the basics like Wikipedia and then IMDb and then Box Office Mojo if we're doing the box office game thing. And sometimes the people will have their own websites. Mm-hmm. It really varies like episode to episode. And like the best place is like start at Wikipedia and then go through the links on there to get like the actual interviews and everything.
Yeah, down the rabbit hole, as they say.
Exactly.
We mentioned earlier about how things have sort of shifted and it's been a real big challenge. The last year, 2020, was rough. How are you doing in 2021 and what's helped you get through?
I'm doing relatively okay, I guess. Like, I don't have a lot to complain about. Like, I'm still pretty strict about quarantine stuff and self-isolating. Like, I still have to go to the grocery store and everything, but I follow mask guidelines and all that still. Mm-hmm. But like, it's not that terrible for me because I was a hermit already. So like the biggest difference is mask stuff. But Discord, I feel like has been like a really big help because that's been able to let me talk to people like you. Or just like a lot of people I've never actually like met before face to face, and it's also let me be able to play games with friends online. Usually you have to play in person, like card games, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big help.
Totally.
And then also I've been reading a lot more because of it. So I downloaded this app called Libby, which lets you connect your library card. And so you can just borrow books for free on there and read them on your phone or your tablet or whatever you have.
Awesome. And do you keep track of how many podcasts you listen to?
I don't. Like, I've got like a bunch on my list, and then I kind of fall behind on a bunch, like 15 to 20 episodes, and then I'll do like a spree during like a month or something.
But what about how many films you watch?
How many films? Yeah, I keep track of that.
Yeah.
Every time I finish a movie, I put that on my phone on like this note app that I have, and then I also add it to Letterboxd.
Oh yeah, that's quite a good site. That was made by New Zealanders.
Oh really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Letterboxd is a pretty fun way of like keeping track of things. Do you go into that in any detail, or do you just like what you've watched it? Like, do you review them all there, or do you just add them to your watched list?
Sometimes I'll review them. Mm-hmm. It's either something that I really loved, or something that I absolutely hated, or something that I have a really bad joke for. I'll keep them pretty short because like I'm not like an actual critic. I'm just like a fan.
Yeah.
So, like I don't write very well, so I like like actual writing, like article type stuff. So I keep that pretty simple. But yeah, like I'd say like maybe a quarter of the movies I've got on there, I've got like reviews for of some sort.
Awesome. So we're recording this in March of 2021. What's your tally for the films you've watched?
So I feel like it's pretty low right now compared to last year. Let me check. I think it's around 25. It is at exactly 25.
Well done.
Yeah, I really fell off last month and like the beginning of this month. Like I just wasn't watching anything, but that's because I started a new job, so I was busy with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now my movie watching's a little more casual, but usually picks up around the summertime or around October also when I try and watch a bunch of horror movies.
Nice.
Yeah. Every once in a while. It's like, I can't even remember how long ago this started. My friends and I, we used to go to a movie marathon where we would go to the earliest showing of a movie at the theater. We pay for a ticket and we would just movie hop all day and we see 6 or 7 movies. It was like physically and emotionally exhausting, but it was so fun. I'm like, we may or may not drink during it. Some people may get super drunk at the end of it. But it's a lot of fun. So now, every once in a while, if I stay up too late or if I just have a couple days off, I will do my own movie marathon where I'll watch 6 or 7 movies in a row, and that kind of catches me up.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun and possibly may end in trouble. The in-person movie marathon one. But that's really neat. Do you find, I just want to sidestep here, but do you know how things are available online, like say Netflix or whatever, you can watch a whole series instead of it coming out weekly? What is your thought on that? Like being able to binge watch something as opposed to having it released weekly. Do you like that that's the way things go sometimes now, or did you prefer it when you had to wait for series to come out one week at a time?
So I guess for the most part, I do like binging stuff because when Netflix first came out with like where you watch stuff online, I binged a few shows. Like that's actually how I watched Firefly. And then, but lately I have been enjoying the weekly thing as long as it's story based and like the break gives you some sort of like cathartic like release. Because some things don't benefit from the binge, like if like a character dies at the end of a movie or there's some sort of or an episode and there's some sort of cliffhanger, it's really undercut by just watching the next episode immediately.
Yeah.
But like for the most part, I do like the binging thing, especially with how people's schedules are nowadays. And but the weekly thing does have its benefits, but I still feel like it's a little lesser.
Yeah. I just noticed personally that if things are like weekly, I forget that they're going to come out the next week. Like lives are busy, schedules are busy. And so I forget that I have to go back and watch it because I don't watch normal TV anymore like I used to where, Fridays were for the episode release or the 6 o'clock news. You can watch that whatever time you want now. But what I did on your theme of some things not benefiting from being watched in advance, I also, or in a binge, I found like things that follow a normal or a timeline like real time, like Snowpiercer, for example. Those episodes I found were good to binge watch because it's basically like following them day by day and what they do.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but whereas ones where there is that kind of break in the timeline, that better suited to weekly releases. Yeah.
One other thing I think like the binge release benefits from is you don't have to watch everything in like one go. Like you can space it out yourself. Whereas with the weekly stuff, you can't like binge it if you want to, unless you just wait till it's already out. Like it's
sorry for laughing in the middle of you saying that. It's just that you can space it out if you want to, but I was like, I have no self-control.
Yeah, same.
Sorry.
Like the only time I'll space out is like if I need to go to sleep.
that's good. I'm really glad to hear that you're doing well, all things considered, the things that have happened. And I mean, even getting work and having that coming out the other side of 2020, because like times are still tough and it's a struggle. So glad to hear that you're doing well. What are you working on at the moment?
So currently, like I said, I'm working on that script I mentioned before, which is like a fantasy Western. It's hard to explain. It's kind of like a horror fantasy. And I just like the Western setting, I guess, just from being like born and raised in Tucson. But it's also, it benefits from the like the lack of technology and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm also editing a couple short films for other people.
That's exciting.
Yeah, which I need to get to work on those again, actually.
Are you enjoying that editing for someone else?
Sometimes I do. Like, it's very case by case.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's one thing I'm working on. It's very structured, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's this other thing that I'm working on that is improv, which is like just absolutely no structure, and I like it's difficult to cut.
That's a challenge.
Yeah, and I don't like that, and then I just get sick of hearing all the different jokes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but yeah, so like I said, it's case by case definitely, but there are some things where, like the stuff for work, I'm editing for somebody else, and I do like it. It's because it's not too intensive, but I still am able to add my own flair to it if I want.
Nice.
Because the boss is pretty cool about that, which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah, and then like the bigger thing I'm working on is that short film I mentioned earlier. I wasn't able to complete it, so I've just been trying to see what I can do with the stuff I do have. Trying to see how creative I can be with that.
Awesome. And on that note, if you could, where would you like to make a film? Location-wise.
Yeah, so my two choices. one is New Zealand.
Yes! That was a whole setup, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Just because, like, so many reasons, like, I'd be able to visit you. That's number one. But also, it's, like, a gorgeous place, and it would be nice to go super far away from here for, like, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then my second one would probably be somewhere, like, around Sweden, I guess, because I just like that area, and I've been trying to teach myself Swedish for the last, like, 6 months.
Awesome. Good job. That's preparation.
Yeah. And I also like that it's relatively small.
Cool. You mentioned that you've got Libby, and that's an app for connecting your library card to read. What are some of the things you've been reading lately? So
I'm currently reading Annihilation, but before that, I read The Three Body Problem, and before that, I read In Different Stars Above, which was very good, but very sad.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, I read a bunch of Star Wars books.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm trying to get more into sci-fi right now, which is why I'm doing Annihilation and Three Body Problem. The movie is based on the book, and it's like it's a trilogy of books, and I'm on the first one. Yeah.
Okay. So is the film just the first book?
Yeah. It's pretty different so far, too, because like I only just started the book, so I'm not too far into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different.
Okay.
It's still like the same basic plot, but it's hard to explain.
Yeah, that was such an interesting film to watch, I didn't even know about the book, to be honest. But yeah, interesting to watch. So that's always interesting how they translate books to films, whether they follow it or they take creative license and create almost a totally different story.
Yeah, it is. It's funny, like, on our show, like, we've been wanting to talk about adaptations in general, which we haven't gotten to that yet, but I think adaptations are interesting to talk about because there are things that you just can't adapt, and so you have to add your own stuff to it. And then if you do just like a shot for shot, like page by page adaptation, it's kind of pointless. You're like, why was this made? If there's no like creative flair added to it.
Yeah, I think that there's something in that, though, because some people like visualizing what they've read, and people get pretty visual when they're reading because you have to imagine it in your head anyway.
No, 100%.
And then that's tricky when people don't their expectations aren't met in a film because it doesn't look like how they thought it would look like in their head. But then there are things like, I'm looking forward to this series because I have thoughts on it. Like one particular book, The Notebook, is terrible as a book, in my opinion, but way better as a film. They did a much better job of realigning the story in the film than they did in the book. And my favorite author is Matthew Riley, and if his books were films, I mean, they would have to be fairly expensive because he's got a lot of action scenes and activity that would cost a lot to produce. But I would so be there to watch it because it would be fast-paced and just, that's why I enjoy reading those books.
Yeah, like one of my favorite books is called To the White Sea, and it's been like talked about being made into a movie for the last like 30 years now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's often described as being unfilmable because a lot of it is just internal monologues from this guy, because it's about this pilot or a gunner from a plane in World War II who lands in Japan after a crash, and he just basically essentially has to walk across the country. It's lots of internal dialogue, which is always difficult to do without just straight up doing like a voiceover.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things I'm curious about with the Dune movie that's coming out. That's a big part of the book too. That's also one of the complaints people had about the David Lynch version of the movie. Curious to see how that turns out.
It's going to be so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out for that one. I watched the series they did on Dune, and wow. But those books are hard to get through too. Sometimes.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, it's like Lord of the Rings is kind of hard going. But it worked out all right in film, I think. Where it's just, that's a very broad summary.
It's Lord of the Rings. There's like so much missing from the books, but I still think it's one of the best like adaptations.
Yeah.
It was impressive what they did.
I mean, we would have been there for more than hours, like 3 hours, if they had tried to do more. Just to kind of tie this all up, in our Geeks Rising group, one thing I love about the community is not just having each other to be supportive of the others, but Logan's done a pretty good job of creating question prompts to help keep us connected and kind of think outside the square on different things. So I don't know if he asked this specific question, but what movie or song would best describe you or represents your life?
Oh, that's a good question. So I'm trying to think of ones that aren't just my favorites, like ones that actually resonate.
Yeah. It's not easy.
It's not. Yeah. I don't know. So my answer off the top of my head, I guess, is Homeward Bound by Simon and Garfunkel. But that's partly because it's in like one of the best episodes of TV ever from my favorite show ever. So that's definitely influencing it. But it's like it's like a sad song, but I like it. It's like about the things that you miss in life and stuff, and the things you need.
Aww.
That's what I'd go with.
Okay. Where are people able to find and listen to On the Subject?
You can find us at On the Subject on Instagram. You can find us at On the Subject 1 on Twitter. You can find us on Geeks Rising, of course. You can find our Patreon. Just search for On the Subject. We're still working out some bugs with that, but it's pretty fun so far. We've got some bonus content on there, which is enjoyable. Some of it's Marvel cinematic related. Other stuff is just conversations. Yeah, that's where you can find our On the Subject stuff.
And where can people find you, Zach?
Find me at Boss Ross Jackson. Underscores between each word on pretty much anything.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me, Zach.
Thanks for inviting me. I've had a ton of fun. It's always fun to talk to you.
Likewise. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Zach, for sharing your time with me to have this conversation. And thank you, listener, for listening and sharing your feedback. We would love to hear from you. If you have a connection with Zach or you find one after listening, please share them with us. And if there's someone you know who might benefit from discovering more about Zach, we would love for you to share it with them too. All of the details of this episode can be found at justheathers.com/guests. Until next time.